Welcome, traveler of time. Tonight, we drift together into the silence of the past. Here, beneath the stars, forgotten empires will rise again, ancient voices will whisper, and lost worlds will breathe once more. This is History Teller YT, where stories of the past are told slowly, softly, like a lullaby for the restless mind. Close your eyes, let the present fade, and step with me into the corridors of history, where memory and dream become one. Close your eyes and let the waves of the Mediterranean carry you back in time. The year is 331 BCE. A young conqueror, not yet 30, rides at the edge of the sea. His name is Alexander. Alexander the Great. He has crossed deserts and mountains, toppled empires, and spread Greek banners across the known world. But here, on the northern coast of Egypt, he sees not a battlefield, but possibility. Before him lies a stretch of land between the Nile and the sea. The sun glimmers on the water, and a breeze smells of salt and promise. Alexander steps down from his horse and draws lines in the sand. A harbor here, streets in perfect squares, a lighthouse to guide the ships, and above all, a city that will outlive him. A city of trade, of knowledge, of glory. He names it after himself. Alexandria. The city grows quickly. Marble buildings rise. Markets swell with spices, scrolls, and silk. Sailors bring stories from faraway lands. India, Babylon, Athens. Philosophers debate in the courtyards, priests chant in the temples, and merchants barter under the shade of palm trees. Alexandria is not just a city, it is a crossroads of the world. And from this dream, another dream will be born. A dream of knowledge gathered from every shore. A dream that would become the greatest library the world had ever known, the Library of Alexandria. As the city of Alexandria grew, so too did the vision of those who ruled it. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy claimed Egypt and made Alexandria his capital. But unlike many rulers who chased only gold and soldiers, the Ptolemies dreamed of something deeper. They wanted to gather all the world's wisdom into one place. They believed knowledge was power, greater than armies, greater than fleets. So, they conceived a sanctuary for learning, a house for every thought ever written, every discovery ever recorded. It would not be merely a collection of scrolls, but a temple of the mind. And so, the Library of Alexandria was imagined. Near the Grand Palace, beside the Muse Ion, the shrine to the Muses, it would stand as a beacon to scholars, travelers, and seekers of truth. No scroll was too small, no story too distant. Captains arriving at Alexandria's port were asked for their books and manuscripts. These were copied by skilled scribes. The originals kept in the library, the copies returned. Slowly, the shelves filled. Slowly, the dream took form. Imagine the sight: great halls lined with cedar shelves, the air heavy with the smell of papyrus and ink. Lamps glowing softly, casting golden light over scrolls stacked in endless rows. The whispers of scholars echoing like prayers in a cathedral of thought. This was no ordinary building. It was the beating heart of knowledge itself. A place where the wisdom of Greece, Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and beyond would live side by side. Step with me now, softly, into the Library of Alexandria. Imagine the silence of its vast chambers, broken only by the turning of a scroll or the scratch of a reed pen. The ceilings stretch high, carved with patterns of stars and vines, as though the universe itself were etched above the scholars' heads. Here, men from every corner of the known world gather. A philosopher from Athens debates with a mathematician from Egypt. A physician from India studies beside a priest from Babylon. Languages mingle, but ideas speak louder than words. The scholars believe that to understand the world, one must gather every fragment of it. Texts on astronomy chart the paths of the planets. Scrolls on medicine record cures and mysteries of the body. Histories, poems, plays, all preserved so that no memory may fade. Some say the library held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Others whisper more. The truth is lost, but the dream was vast. And at the center of it all, a belief that knowledge was not for one nation, nor for one people, but for all humanity. A treasure not locked away, but shared, like fire carried from torch to torch. Yet, as we drift in this dream of parchment and candlelight, let us not forget, even the greatest flames may one day be snuffed out. For the Library of Alexandria, in its glory, was also already walking toward its tragedy. Dawn breaks over Alexandria. The sun rises slowly above the harbor, its light spilling across the marble streets, the busy markets, the endless blue of the sea. And within the quiet halls of the great library, the day begins for its guardians of wisdom. The scholars awaken early, robes drawn against the cool morning air. Some are mathematicians, their minds fixed on patterns of numbers and shapes. Others are physicians, seeking cures for illness in the knowledge of old texts. There are poets, historians, astronomers, each drawn here by the same promise, that in these walls one might touch the full breadth of human thought. Inside the library, they gather at wooden tables, their hands stained with ink, their eyes tired but shining with curiosity. Scrolls lie before them in careful stacks. A philosopher from Athens compares the writings of Plato with an Egyptian hymn to Ra. A traveler from India unrolls a palm leaf manuscript, while a Babylonian priest translates cuneiform tablets into Greek. The air is alive, though hushed, like a temple where the gods being worshipped are ideas. Candles flicker softly. The sound of pages unrolling is like the rustle of leaves in an endless forest. And in this sanctuary, knowledge is not hoarded. It is copied, debated, reimagined. Each day, the wisdom of the past is reborn into the present, ready to guide the future. As the morning deepens, the library hums with quiet devotion. Scribes sit at long benches, carefully unrolling fragile papyrus brought in from distant lands. Their hands move steadily, dipping reeds into black ink, copying each symbol with patience. The originals are stored in cedar chests, safe from damp and insects, while the copies are returned to merchants and captains. Thus, the library grows, scroll by scroll, like a living organism fed by every ship that enters Alexandria's harbor. Elsewhere, debates unfold in shaded courtyards. A mathematician demonstrates the proof of a theorem on a wax tablet, while his students argue over its meaning. In another corner, an astronomer sketches the arc of the moon's path across the night sky, comparing it with Babylonian star charts that speak of constellations older than empires. The library is not silent because it is empty. It is silent because minds are absorbed in communion with knowledge itself. Even the priests who serve the muses treat this place as holy. For here, thought is worship and writing is prayer. Some whisper that even plays of Euripides long lost in Athens were preserved here. Others believe treatises on medicine from India, maps of Africa, and histories of forgotten kings slept on its shelves. Within these walls, it seemed as if the entire memory of mankind had been gathered, waiting to be awakened. As the sun lowers toward the western sea, golden light spills into the halls of the library. Shadows stretch across the marble floors, and the lamps are lit one by one. The scholars pause in their work, stretching weary hands, their eyes red from hours bent over papyrus and parchment. Some linger a little longer. A young student leans close to a master, listening as he explains the movements of the heavens. Another traces a map of the known world, dreaming of the lands beyond, still waiting to be discovered. For them, each scroll is not only ink and fiber. It is a bridge across centuries, connecting them to voices long silent. When night falls, the library does not sleep. Candles glow softly, and in hidden chambers, certain scholars continue their work. They believe knowledge is endless, and time too short to uncover it all. A traveler who once entered these halls wrote that the library was like standing among the stars themselves, each scroll a shining point of light in a vast night of ignorance. And so, day by day, year by year, Alexandria became not just a city of commerce or empire, but a city of memory. The library stood as the heart of this dream, a beating flame, guarded by those who believe that wisdom, once found, must never be lost. But even flames, no matter how bright, are always fragile in the winds of history. Step softly now into the deeper chambers of the library, where the most precious scrolls were kept. Imagine shelves rising higher than a man could reach, cedar wood polished smooth, and chests bound in bronze to guard against the sea's damp breath. Here lay the treasures of knowledge, words gathered from the farthest corners of the earth. There were the great epics of Homer, not only in their familiar Greek form, but in translations compared line by line with fragments older than Athens itself. There were plays of Aeschylus and Sophocles, some that later ages would lose forever, preserved here in careful script. Philosophical treatises, mathematical theorems, sacred hymns of Egypt and Babylon, all waiting for hands to unroll them, eyes to drink them in. It was said that medical texts from the schools of Hippocrates rested here beside writings from Indian physicians, recording herbs and cures unknown to the West. Astronomical charts from Babylon, with their patient records of the stars, were studied alongside Egyptian calendars of the floods of the Nile. Even histories of forgotten kings, Assyrian, Persian, Egyptian, were kept in these halls, telling of empires that had risen and fallen long before Alexander's dream of conquest. To walk among these scrolls was to walk through time itself. Each papyrus was a voice rescued from silence, each chest a doorway into another world. And though no man could ever read them all, the library whispered its promise, that nothing need be forgotten if only it was written and preserved. The library did not wait passively for knowledge to arrive. It reached out, gathering wisdom with deliberate hands. Every ship that entered the harbor of Alexandria was searched, not for gold or spices, but for books, scrolls, codices, manuscripts, whatever the sailors carried. Officials would take them, send them to the library scribes, and carefully copy them. The copies were returned to the owners, but the originals, those stayed in Alexandria, preserved in the great collection. This practice was called the right of seizure. Some called it bold, even theft. But the rulers of Alexandria believed they were rescuing knowledge, ensuring it would not vanish into obscurity. To them, wisdom belonged not to individuals, but to humanity itself. Beyond the harbor, ambassadors were sent to distant lands with gold in their purses and a single purpose: to buy or borrow every manuscript they could find. From Athens came plays and philosophy. From Babylon came star charts. From India came medical texts. From the sacred temples of Egypt, hieroglyphic writings were carefully translated into Greek. And so, the library became a mirror of the world. It was said that hundreds of thousands of scrolls filled its chambers, though no number can be known for certain. Perhaps 400,000, perhaps more than 700,000. Legends even claim that every work ever written by man, in every land, was sought for these shelves. To enter the library was to touch the heartbeat of civilization. Here, the wisdom of nations was not scattered and divided, but gathered as one. A treasure not of silver or marble, but of thought itself. Among the countless scrolls that lined the library's shelves were said to be wonders beyond imagination. Works whispered of, but now lost to time. Some claimed the library held the lost books of Aristotle, his thoughts on mysteries never taught in Athens. Others believed it preserved the tragedies of Sophocles and Euripides that had vanished from the stage, their words surviving only in these quiet halls. It was rumored that ancient Egyptian texts, written long before Greece was born, told of medicine, astronomy, and sacred rites. From Babylon came tablets of star records stretching back 1,000 years. From India, stories of gods, epics of heroes, and treatises on numbers and infinity. Some even believed there were writings from lands further east, China, speaking of philosophies unknown to the West. There may have been maps of the world, showing coasts not yet reached by Roman sails. Perhaps histories of kingdoms erased from memory, their only trace resting here, in careful ink on papyrus. We cannot know, for what was once gathered with such care would, in time, slip away. But imagine, for a moment, standing in that hall, your hand brushing a scroll that contained knowledge no living soul remembers today. Imagine the weight of it, the quiet power of holding a voice rescued from eternity's silence. That was the magic of the Library of Alexandria, a magic we can only dream of now. To step inside the Library of Alexandria was not only to see scrolls and ink, it was to witness the world gathered under one roof. Never before, and perhaps never again, had so many cultures met in such harmony. Here, Greek philosophers debated with Egyptian priests. Babylonian star watchers compared notes with astronomers from Athens. Travelers from India shared their knowledge of medicine and numbers, while Jewish scholars translated sacred writings into Greek, creating what would be known as the Septuagint. Ideas that had once lived in isolation now touched, merged, and grew. The Museion, the great temple of the Muses, stood beside the library, serving as both sanctuary and school. Within its marble halls, music and poetry intertwined with mathematics and science. It was a place where no subject was considered too small, no idea too strange. All knowledge had a place here. Alexandria itself became a mirror of this vision. Its streets echoed with many languages: Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Latin, even tongues carried across deserts and seas. Merchants sold spices from Arabia, papyrus from the Nile, gold from Nubia, and silk from faraway lands. The city was a living library, and at its heart stood the Great One, holding the soul of human memory. In this way, Alexandria was not only a city of empire, it was a city of humanity, a beacon where knowledge was the true currency, traded freely across borders of nation and faith. In the courtyards of Alexandria, under shaded colonnades, conversations bloomed like gardens. A philosopher might pause mid-walk to ask a physician about the balance of the body's humors. An astronomer, tracing the heavens with a bronze compass, could be overheard by a poet who would later weave those stars into verse. Languages mixed freely. One scholar spoke in Greek, another answered in Egyptian, a third added words in Aramaic or Sanskrit. What could not be translated by tongue was drawn in symbols, numbers, and diagrams. Knowledge found a way to travel, even when words faltered. The library itself encouraged this blending. Scrolls were not kept in secret chambers, but studied, copied, and debated openly. A Greek mathematician might be handed a Babylonian tablet of eclipses. A historian from Egypt might pore over the annals of Persia. Each discovery was a stepping stone for another. The result was more than preservation. It was transformation. Ideas crossed boundaries, reshaped by the minds who received them. In Alexandria, medicine was not only Greek or Indian, astronomy not only Egyptian or Babylonian. They became something greater, woven together like threads in a single tapestry of thought. And as the lamps burned into the night, the city itself seemed to glow with this spirit of exchange. Alexandria was a marketplace not only of goods, but of wisdom, the most precious cargo ever traded across the seas. As the years passed, Alexandria's reputation grew beyond its marble walls. Travelers spoke of it in distant marketplaces, as though it were less a city and more a wonder. They called it the lighthouse of wisdom, a place where the world's knowledge gathered like waters pouring into the sea. To study in a library was an honor sought by kings and scholars alike. Rulers sent emissaries to copy texts, hoping to carry fragments of Alexandria's wisdom back to their own lands. Philosophers dreamed of walking its halls, to sit at tables where truths were uncovered daily. Even Rome, proud and powerful, looked with awe toward this city where learning was as prized as conquest. The library stood as more than a collection of scrolls. It was the soul of Alexandria itself. Its light reached beyond the harbor, beyond the desert, beyond the mountains. It was proof that civilization was not built only with stone and steel, but with thought, memory, and imagination. And yet, even in its glory, the library carried within it the seeds of its fragility. For knowledge, though eternal in spirit, must live within fragile vessels, papyrus, parchment, ink, and the human heart. All it would take was one moment, one spark, one storm of history, and the greatest treasure of mankind could vanish into smoke. Even in its own time, the Library of Alexandria was shrouded in legend. No one truly knew how vast its collection was. Some whispered of 400,000 scrolls. Others claimed 700,000. A few believed that every word ever written by man had, in some form, found its way here. And with numbers came stories, whispers of treasures too great to imagine. Some said the library held the missing books of Aristotle, works that delved deeper than the teachings passed to his students. Others believed it preserved the complete plays of Sophocles and Euripides, far more than the handful of tragedies that survived to later centuries. There were rumors of histories older than memory, Egyptian records tracing dynasties back thousands of years, Babylonian star tables chronicling the skies across ages. It was said that scrolls from India carried the seeds of mathematics, even the concept of zero, long before the West would discover it. Some claimed Chinese writings rested here too, brought by distant travelers, filled with philosophies unknown to Greece or Rome. Of course, we cannot know which of these tales were true, but what mattered was the belief, the sense that within the library's walls rested answers to questions men had not yet even learned to ask. Among the many whispers of the library's treasures were stories of sciences that seemed almost like magic. Some said it held treatises on machines powered by steam, written by inventors whose names we no longer know. Others claimed there were maps of the earth showing coasts that Rome had never reached, lands that would not be rediscovered for centuries. It was believed that scrolls from India spoke of the endless cycle of numbers, carrying the seed of what would one day become algebra. Medical texts may have described surgeries and remedies far ahead of their time, cures that might have spared generations from suffering had they survived. There were even tales of the library preserving stories of lost civilizations, kingdoms swallowed by desert or sea, remembered only in fading ink. Imagine if among those scrolls were accounts of lands now forgotten, or inventions that could have changed the very course of history. And then there were the myths of secret wisdom. Alchemists dreamed that hidden in those shelves was the formula to turn base metals into gold, or the knowledge to unlock immortality. Philosophers imagined scrolls that explained the nature of the soul, the origin of the stars, the mysteries of existence itself. Whether true or not, these legends gave the library a presence larger than life. It was no longer only a building, but a dream, a promise of what humanity might achieve if all its knowledge could be held in one place. As the centuries turned, the stories of what the library once held grew ever greater. Perhaps it was never as vast as legend claimed. Perhaps some scrolls were ordinary, filled with merchants' accounts or minor histories. Yet the imagination of later generations transformed it into something more than stone and papyrus. For people long after its fall, the library became a symbol of possibility. It was said to hold the answers to riddles that still haunt us today, the secrets of forgotten medicines, the true maps of ancient worlds, the complete works of poets whose voices had been silenced. Some imagined it contained wisdom of the stars, knowledge that might have carried mankind to the heavens far earlier than history allowed. The truth is lost. The scrolls turned to dust, the shelves to ash, the voices to silence. And yet, the dream of the library never died. Even in ruins, it lived on in memory, as though humanity itself could not let go of the thought that once, in one shining moment, all knowledge might have been gathered in one place. And so, the Library of Alexandria became more than a building. It became a myth, a beacon of what was and what might have been, a dream forever out of reach, yet never forgotten. The year is 48 BCE. Alexandria is no longer the shining jewel of Ptolemy alone. It has become a prize sought by empires. Julius Caesar, the Roman general, has marched into Egypt, drawn into a conflict between Cleopatra and her brother. The city trembles under siege, its streets echoing with the clash of steel, the cries of soldiers, the shouts of flame. In the harbor, Caesar's ships lie at anchor, but danger surrounds them. Enemy forces threaten to trap the Roman fleet. To save his men, Caesar orders the ships of the harbor set ablaze. Fire leaps from mast to mast, spreading with the hungry breath of the wind. Flames lick the wooden docks, climb the warehouses, and begin to devour the city itself. It is here, according to many, that tragedy first touched the library. The fire that began as a weapon in war spread beyond its master's control. Scrolls, kept in storehouses near the harbor, caught the spark. Papyrus, so dry and delicate, ignited like kindling. The crackle of fire replaced the whisper of pages. Smoke rose into the night sky, carrying with it words that would never be read again. No one knows how much was lost. Some say it was only a portion of the collection, scrolls stored in the docks awaiting transfer. Others believe the flames reached deeper, into the very halls of the library itself. But what is certain is that the first wound had been struck, and the dream of Alexandria would never be whole again. When the smoke cleared and the flames had died, Alexandria was scarred. The proud city of marble and trade smelled of ash. Ships smoldered in the harbor, their masts broken like the bones of giants. Warehouses were blackened shells, and among them, scrolls, thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, had been reduced to nothing more than drifting cinders. Imagine the sorrow of the scholars who walked among the ruins. For them, each scroll was not simply ink and fiber, but a voice, a memory, a piece of eternity. To see them scattered as ash upon the sea breeze was to watch centuries of thought vanish in a single night. The citizens mourned too. Alexandria had prided itself not only on wealth and power, but on wisdom. The library was their crown, their beacon. And now, part of that crown had melted away. People whispered of the losses. Histories no longer told. Cures no longer remembered. Poems no longer sung. The silence left behind was heavier than stone. Yet the library did not die that day. Its heart still beat, its halls still stood. But the wound was deep, a reminder of how fragile knowledge can be. What fire consumes, no hand can rebuild. Though the fire had devoured much, the library did not fall completely. Its great halls, its central chambers, and countless shelves of wisdom still endured. Like a wounded giant, it staggered but did not yet collapse. Scholars returned, dusting ash from tables, unrolling the scrolls that remained, continuing their work as though to defy the flames. The rulers of Alexandria sought to heal the loss. More scrolls were gathered, more ships searched, more scribes set to work. The dream of a universal library still lived, though now it carried a scar. The flames of Caesar's war had shown the world how fragile knowledge truly was, how easily centuries could vanish in an instant. And yet, hope lingered. The library endured for centuries after, though no one could say how much had been lost in that first blaze. Perhaps it was only a fraction. Perhaps it was more than we dare imagine. What we know is that the heart of Alexandria still beat, still drew scholars from every land, still shone as the lighthouse of wisdom in the ancient world. But destiny is patient. The library had survived its first brush with death, yet greater storms lay ahead. And each time history turned its gaze upon Alexandria, the dream of knowledge would grow more fragile. Time moved on, and with it, the fortunes of Alexandria began to change. Once the proud jewel of the Ptolemies, the city passed into Roman hands. At first, the library endured, still holding scholars in its shadow, still offering wisdom to those who sought it. But Rome did not cherish learning as Alexandria once had. To the conquerors, books were trophies, not treasures. The emperors of Rome valued order, law, and empire. Knowledge, unless it served their power, was often neglected. The library no longer received the same devotion, the same endless hunger for scrolls that had once fed it. Slowly its glow dimmed. The great halls still stood, the scribes still copied, but the dream no longer burned as fiercely. Worse still, the world beyond was changing. Wars shook the frontiers. Armies marched through lands that had once been sources of wisdom. Trade routes shifted. The caravans that once brought rare scrolls from distant kingdoms now carried soldiers and steel. The river of knowledge that once flowed so strongly into Alexandria began to slow to a trickle. And yet, the library remained. Though diminished, it was still a place of wonder. A shadow, perhaps, of its greatest days, but a shadow that still held more light than any other place on earth. As centuries passed, Alexandria found itself caught in storms not of nature, but of men. The Ptolemies were gone, and Rome's grip tightened. Civil wars tore through the empire, and Alexandria, so often at the crossroads of trade and knowledge, became instead a battleground of politics and faith. The rulers of Rome did not always look kindly upon free thought. Emperors demanded loyalty, not questions. Scholars who once debated freely in the courtyards now measured their words carefully, wary of offending those in power. Slowly, the spirit of fearless inquiry began to fade. Religion, too, began to reshape the city. New faiths arose, bringing with them new zeal, new beliefs, and new doubts about the wisdom of the ancients. Some saw the old scrolls not as treasures, but as dangerous relics, voices of pagan gods, whispers of philosophies that threatened the rising tide of new devotion. The library endured through these shifting tides, but less brightly than before. No longer did ambassadors sail across seas to bring gifts of knowledge. No longer did rulers boast of filling its shelves. Instead, its halls grew quieter, its scrolls untouched by curious hands. The silence that once spoke of reverence now began to feel like neglect. The dream of Alexandria had not yet ended, but like a flame left untended, it flickered low, waiting for the winds of fate to strike again. The Library of Alexandria did not fall in a single night, nor with a single fire. Its decline was slower, quieter, like a great ship taking on water, sinking not from one blow but from many small wounds. Each war, each shift of power, each wave of neglect chipped away at its strength. Scrolls grew fragile with age, and without constant care, many crumbled into dust. Scribes became fewer, their benches empty. Scholars who once traveled across seas now sought other cities. Athens, Pergamon, Rome itself, places where patronage still flourished. And so the library, once the heart of the world's wisdom, began to fade from the center of human thought. Yet even in decline, it remained a symbol. Travelers who glimpsed its halls still spoke of wonder. The idea of a place where all knowledge might live together was too great to forget, even as its shelves grew thin. The library endured, fragile but alive, waiting. But history is never still, and what neglect began, violence would finish. For the Library of Alexandria, the greatest treasure of the ancient world had not yet faced its darkest hours. The fall of the Library of Alexandria is a mystery wrapped in shadows. No single account tells the whole tale. Instead, history gives us fragments, whispers of loss across centuries. Each tells of flames, of conquest, of faith and power turning against knowledge. Some say the end came in the 3rd century, when the Emperor Aurelian fought to retake Alexandria from Queen Zenobia of Palmyra. The battle raged through the city, and in the chaos, parts of the library complex were said to be destroyed. Scrolls that had survived Caesar's fire may have perished then, scattered beneath Roman blades. Others claim it was later, in the 4th century, when the Christian patriarch Theophilus ordered the destruction of pagan temples. If the library's treasures have been kept near the Serapeum, the great temple of Serapis, then perhaps in that moment, fire and zeal consumed what centuries have preserved. To some, this was not only an attack on idols, but upon memory itself. Still others believe the final blow came in the 7th century, when the armies of Caliph Omar conquered Alexandria. Legend says that when asked what to do with the library's scrolls, Omar replied, "If they agree with the Quran, they are unnecessary. If they disagree, they are dangerous. Burn them." Whether this tale is truth or myth, we cannot know. But the idea lingers, of flames fed for months by the words of the ancients. The truth may be that the library did not end in one single fire, but in many a slow death, carried on the winds of war, faith, and time. Each tale of the library's destruction tells us more than just history. It reveals something about humanity itself. When Caesar's fire swept through the harbor, it was war and ambition that consumed wisdom. When Aurelian soldiers fought in the streets, it was conquest that tore knowledge apart. When Theophilus struck against the temples, it was faith clashing with memory. And if the story of Caliph Omar holds truth, then it was certainty that silenced curiosity. Perhaps none of these tales alone is the whole story. Perhaps all of them are. The library may have burned more than once, each fire taking a piece of its soul, until at last, nothing remained. But what strikes us most is not the flames themselves, is the silence that followed. No cries were recorded as scrolls turned to ash. No chronicles tell us exactly what was lost. Only absence remains. An empty space where knowledge once lived, like a gap torn in the fabric of time. And so, the library's death is not just a story of burning walls, but of forgetting. Humanity did not merely lose a building. It lost voices, discoveries, memories that could have shaped centuries to come. The tragedy is not only that the fire came, but that we cannot even know how much it took. The Library of Alexandria did not fall with a single cry, nor leave behind a single ruin. Its end was quieter, more elusive. Century by century, flame by flame, it was unmade, until even the stones that sheltered it were lost to time. Today, no trace remains. No carved pillar, no shattered shelf, no fragment of papyrus that we can hold and say, "This was once part of the greatest library on earth." It is as though the library was swallowed whole by history, leaving only shadows in our imagination. And perhaps that is its truest legacy, not the building itself, but the dream it became. The thought that once, for a fleeting moment, humanity gathered its knowledge together and tried to preserve it against forgetting. To lose the library was to lose more than scrolls. It was to lose possibilities. What cures for illness, what visions of the stars, what histories of forgotten peoples might have reached us, had they not turned to smoke? What paths might our species have walked, had we been guided by those lost words? And so, the Library of Alexandria lives on not in stone, but in longing. It is the ghost of a dream, the eternal reminder that knowledge is fragile, that memory can be erased, and that wisdom, once lost, may never return. To think of the Library of Alexandria is to think not only of what it was, but of what it might have given us. For the true tragedy lies not in the flames that consumed it, but in the knowledge that vanished with the smoke. Imagine, if you will, the lost works of the ancients. Entire plays by Sophocles and Euripides forever silenced. Histories of kingdoms whose names we no longer know, their stories erased from memory. Writings of philosophers who pondered questions we may never think to ask again. Each scroll was a thread in the great tapestry of human thought. And when the library fell, countless threads were torn away. Perhaps within those shelves lay discoveries centuries ahead of their time. Medical treatises describing cures long forgotten. Charts of the heavens that might have revealed truths about the cosmos far earlier than our age would rediscover. Books of mathematics, carrying seeds of algebra, geometry, and even ideas of infinity, waiting to be planted in human minds. What inventions might have been born had those scrolls survived? Could engines of steam and light have emerged in ancient times? Could voyages across oceans have begun centuries before they did? Could the stars themselves have been reached sooner, guided by wisdom we can no longer touch? We will never know. And that unknowing, that silence, is the wound the library leaves behind. The fall of the library was not only a loss to its own age, it was a wound carried into the centuries that followed. Without its scrolls, humanity was forced to rediscover truths it may once have already held. Knowledge that could have been passed like a torch from one age to the next had instead to be rekindled from ashes. Consider medicine. The ancients of Egypt, India, and Greece had recorded remedies, surgeries, and observations that may have been gathered within those halls. Yet centuries later, much of this was forgotten. Healers in the Middle Ages relied on guesswork and superstition, while cures perhaps written in Alexandria were already lost to fire. Or think of astronomy. Babylonian and Egyptian charts recorded the dance of the stars across generations. If they had survived, they might have guided mankind to understand the cosmos far earlier. Instead, centuries passed before Galileo turned his telescope skyward and rediscovered what perhaps had once been known. Even in mathematics and engineering, the absence is felt. What if the library had preserved works on mechanics, geometry, or number systems far beyond their time? What wonders might have been built? What inventions might have transformed the world, not in the Renaissance, but in Rome, or even before? The silence of the library is not empty. It is filled with questions that will never be answered, because the voices that might have spoken them are gone forever. Even now, centuries later, the absence of the library lingers. It is not only a story of what was destroyed, but of what we still feel missing. The gaps in our history, the forgotten kingdoms, the lost voices, the vanished discoveries, all whisper of Alexandria's silence. For every question we ask today, we cannot help but wonder, did someone already answer this long ago? Did a scroll lie waiting, its ink carefully drawn, carrying knowledge that might have changed the path of humanity forever? The answer lies buried in ashes, unreachable. And so, the library is remembered not as a building, but as a lesson. That knowledge, no matter how vast, is fragile. That wisdom, unless protected, can be erased. What was once the brightest flame of learning became the darkest void of forgetting. Yet in that void, there is also inspiration. For the memory of the library has kindled in later ages the will to preserve, to copy, to protect every book and thought we can. It has become a warning and a beacon. Though the scrolls are gone, the dream that created them still calls to us. The Library of Alexandria teaches us that what is lost may never return, but what survives must be cherished, for it carries the light of all who came before. Though the Library of Alexandria itself was lost, its spirit did not vanish. Like a seed carried on the wind, its dream took root in later ages, inspiring those who long to preserve knowledge for generations yet to come. In the great libraries of Rome, echoes of Alexandria could be felt, collections gathered by emperors who sought to imitate its grandeur. Centuries later, in the Islamic Golden Age, scholars in Baghdad built the House of Wisdom, a center of translation and discovery that carried forward the same vision, that the wisdom of many cultures belonged to all of humanity. From monasteries of medieval Europe to the universities of the Renaissance, the ghost of Alexandria walked silently, reminding each age that knowledge must be gathered, guarded, and shared. And in time, the great modern libraries of our world, the British Library, the Library of Congress, the countless collections that span continents, stand as descendants of that first dream by the sea. Even today, the name of Alexandria stirs the imagination. In Egypt, near the site of the ancient city, a new structure was raised in 2002, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina. Built in glass and stone, it stands as a modern tribute to the ancient wonder, a promise that though the scrolls are gone, the dream of uniting knowledge still endures. The library may have turned to ash, but its legacy became eternal. The true legacy of the Library of Alexandria is not only in the libraries that followed, but in the very way humanity came to see knowledge. For once, learning was scattered, kept in temples, guarded in kingdoms, whispered by poets. But Alexandria taught the world to dream of something greater. A single place where all wisdom might live, safe from the hunger of time. This idea changed us. It shaped the way we build universities, archives, and libraries today. The belief that knowledge should not belong to one people, nor one ruler, but to all who seek it, is the inheritance of Alexandria. Every book copied, every text preserved, every effort to digitize and protect the words of our age is, in its own way, an echo of that ancient dream. The tragedy of its loss also left us with a duty. We are reminded that wisdom is fragile, that fire and neglect can erase voices forever. And so, in honoring the memory of Alexandria, we guard our own knowledge more carefully. Each generation feels the weight of that responsibility to preserve so that no future age will look back on us and wonder what we allowed to vanish. The library may have perished, but its ghost walks beside every reader, every scholar, every seeker of truth. It whispers, "Remember me. Protect what I cannot." Though its stones are gone, though no scroll survives, the Library of Alexandria still breathes in the hearts of all who seek knowledge. Its dream did not end with fire. It lives wherever curiosity stirs, wherever a question is asked, wherever a page is turned. Each time a child learns to read, each time a student uncovers a truth, each time a library opens its doors to all who enter, Alexandria rises again. Not in marble, not in cedar shelves, but in the spirit of human wonder. For what the ancients sought beside the sea, we seek still today, to gather the wisdom of the world, so that no thought is lost and no voice forgotten. In this way, the library is eternal. Its walls were burned, but its vision endures. It teaches us that even in loss, there is light, that from the ashes of forgetting, humanity can build again, carrying forward the flame of knowledge. And so, the Library of Alexandria is not merely a story of tragedy. It is also a story of hope, a reminder that though wisdom is fragile, the human desire to seek, to learn, and to remember is stronger still. Close your eyes and imagine for a moment, what if the Library of Alexandria had survived? What if its scrolls had endured the centuries, carried forward from hand to hand, safe from fire and time? Perhaps the world would be different. Perhaps cures for illness would have been found centuries earlier. Perhaps engines of light and steam would have carried men across oceans long before Columbus, or into the skies long before Da Vinci. Perhaps we would look to the stars tonight, not with longing, but with ships already sailing among them. Or perhaps, more simply, we would know the voices of poets and thinkers lost to silence. Plays performed in Athens that we can no longer hear. Histories of forgotten lands. Their people remembered not as ruins, but as living words. The library might have been the thread that bound together the full story of humanity. But is not ours to know. The scrolls are gone, the halls are dust, and history took a different path. And yet, the dream remains. For even in imagining what might have been, we are touched by Alexandria's gift, the reminder that knowledge is the greatest treasure we can seek. The story of the Library of Alexandria is both a sorrow and a lesson. It teaches us that wisdom is not indestructible. Even the grandest collections, guarded by kings and cherished by scholars, can vanish in an instant of flame or neglect. Memory, unless protected, is fragile. And yet, there's also beauty in this lesson. For knowing how easily knowledge can be lost, we cherish more deeply what survives. Every book, every scroll, every word passed from one age to the next becomes precious because it carries the light of those who came before. The library reminds us that no empire, no monument, no temple is greater than the memory of humanity itself. For stones crumble and statues fall, but ideas, if preserved, can outlive the world that first gave them birth. Perhaps this is why the story of Alexandria endures. Not because of what we know, but because of what we do not. The silence it leaves behind is a call to us, a gentle urging to guard our own knowledge, so that no future age will feel the same loss. In this way, even in its absence, the library still guides us. And so, as we let the story of Alexandria drift into silence, we are left not with ashes, but with a dream. A dream that knowledge belongs to all. That memory must be guarded. That every question we ask, Every truth we preserve adds one more light to the eternal flame of wisdom. The library itself may be gone, but its spirit lingers in the pages of books, in the shelves of libraries, in the voices of teachers, in the quiet curiosity of every soul who longs to understand the world. Each of us carries a spark of that ancient fire, and with every word we read, with every thought we share, the Library of Alexandria rises once more. Now, as you rest, imagine yourself walking again through its endless halls, scrolls stretching into the distance, lamps glowing warmly, voices of every age whispering softly around you. The library has not been lost, not truly. It lives wherever there is wonder, wherever there is learning, wherever there is the simple, timeless act of remembering. Sleep now, with the comfort that Alexandria's dream is alive in you. And so, dear traveler, our long journey through time comes to an end. We have walked the shining streets of Alexandria, stood within the marble halls of its library, and listened to the whispers of voices lost to history. We have watched flames rise, felt the sorrow of forgetting, and carried the hope of memory's endurance. The Library of Alexandria may have been reduced to ash, but its story still glows in us. It reminds us that knowledge is the truest treasure, more lasting than stone, more powerful than armies. And though the scrolls are gone, their spirit has traveled across centuries, shaping the way we learn, the way we dream, the way we guard our wisdom today. Now, let the weight of the past settle gently around you, like a warm blanket. The voices of the ancients have been heard, their silence has been honored, and the dream of Alexandria has been carried safely into your heart. Now, as the lamps of Alexandria fade, and the scrolls return to silence, let your own eyes grow heavy. The long journey is over. You have walked through halls of wisdom, stood among scholars and kings, and watched the greatest library of the ancient world rise and fall. But here, in the quiet of this moment, the dream remains. The library is not lost, not truly. It lives in memory, in imagination, and in every soul that cherishes learning. Each thought you hold, each word you remember, is another scroll preserved, another flame kept alive against the winds of time. Rest now, knowing that you carry a piece of that eternal fire. Sleep deeply, as the waves of the Mediterranean whisper against the shore, and the stars above Alexandria shine once more. Good night, and may the dream of wisdom guide you gently into peace. You have walked far tonight, through forgotten halls and vanished empires, through stories of wonder and sorrow. Now, as the echoes of history grow quiet, let peace settle gently upon you. If the dream of the past has soothed your heart, remember that here, in History Teller YT, the stories never end. More journeys await when next you choose to listen. For now, let go, rest deeply, and sleep in the comfort that the past still watches over us, whispering softly through time. Good night, and may history guide your dreams.